don't you think we should start with, first of all, having a policy, look at the aviation policy in the country before we begin to look at having a line that will come in?
There's a policy, there's an aviation policy in the country. The only thing you are saying is that what you're saying precisely, the framework.
Or enforcement.
Yes, the framework. What will be the framework for it? What will be the equity participation, foreign equity participation, Nigerian equity participation? What will it be? Like Virgin we were told between 49 and 51. That was why that airline could not go to the US. It wasn't going to. US didn't allow it to come in, even if it was operating well, because the Open Skies Agreement with US, that the structure breached the Open Skies Agreement with the US.
So what would you recommend this one be if we float one?
Foreign participation in it should not be more than 29%. 29%. KLM started in Kenya Airways with 29%. They've moved down to about 23 or 25%. If you look at all the airlines, international airlines, Air France, the equities are there. Foreign equities. You look at, except South African Airways is wholly owned by South African government. People don't know. It's not a private, it's wholly owned through Transnet, a company that holds it 100% in trust. The South African Airways, Ethiopian Airlines, so all of them, both of them are owned by the government fully. It's only Kenya Airways. Kenya Airways, the Kenyan government is holding about 23% equity. KLM, about 25% equity. The rest by Kenyan investors, private individuals and the groups. So there are various models of doing that, but first is to have a framework. We don't have the framework. Then the next thing, put people together is in the interest of our country. Those who know, there are those who know. Put them together, take out the information from them, and go and do what you want to do in the interest of our country.
And we have enough of the people who know.
We have enough of people who know. We may not have enough of people who can manage. Saudi Arabia, these big Emirates, UAE, they don't have people managing, but they know what they want. They know what they want, and they put on the ground what the country wants, and then they get people to manage it. The airline industry is no longer the place you say it must be a Nigerian that should manage. So is there a good Nigerian? Yes.
The issue of monitoring and enforcement will still come back again. If you say we know what we want, then we reach out to those who can manage.
Yes.
What about the issue of monitoring and enforcement?
Monitoring and enforcement. If you have a good board of Nigerians, they have the roadmap. The country will have a roadmap for it. We never had a roadmap on Virgin. It was Branson's roadmap to have a highly successful domestic and regional airline that will feed Virgin Atlantic.
Okay, funding is key in all of this. I mean, I've heard, what about this Mazota's panel? I understand that some funds were supposed to have been recovered from there. So if that were the case, can it be used to fund or float the national carrier?
Chamberlain, thank you. Anytime Mazota's report is mentioned, I feel very sad, because that is one of the shortest probe panel that this country ever saw. Today, why is there no gazette on that report? There's no gazette. Somebody went to court. Georgie felt angered with some of the things said, went to court, joined Ministry of Justice. Ministry of Justice went to court and said, we don't know what you're talking about. We have nothing in our system showing about anybody having committed whatever or the other. The police, the same thing. So government looked at it. It didn't find it worthy enough to gazette anything. Nobody was investigated. Nobody whatsoever. Danjuma committee was set up to look at it after it. Danjuma declined after looking at the report. It was a wishy-washy report. One of the probe panel just sat down and slandered people. It's just because it's a probe panel report. If I give you a little example, one or two examples, Captain Briggs was a minister. Nigeria Airways, he came from Nigeria Airways. Nigeria Airways was owing about $30 million on its DC-10. And his aircraft were seized. He couldn't fly. He went to the president, head of state then, that's Abubakar, and said, look at this. Abubakar said, I don't have that kind of money. After some time pressure, he said, okay, go and negotiate, but involve Nigeria High Commission. Nigeria High Commission in London was involved. They negotiated, brought the bid down to about 15 million. And eventually, after sorting out, the leader of the consortium, Equatorialism, had liquidated, but other members of the consortium were there. So the Nigeria High Commission paid. Mwazota said Captain Briggs should refund the money. Captain Briggs did not touch the money. He only requested that this should be paid so that the airline will be flying. He didn't touch the money. He says, but if you go and look at the report, you see Captain Briggs indicted for begging that the money should be paid, for not touching the money. There's nobody in that report whose account was investigated. There's nobody in that report that money was found with. That money was, that report was not even given to the police to investigate or to the Financial Crimes Commission, because it was so shoddy that you look at it, you wonder whether it was really handled by people of that caliber. And he handled it with so much theatricality that you would think that heavens have come down. Nothing. The report is as hollow as anything. It cannot stand any court processes. That's why it's not gazetted. That's why there's not anybody referring to it. Either is ignorant or is just mischievous to slander. But that's so whenever people talk about Nwazota's report, some of us who know feel very, very angry. He could have done a better job. I'm not saying there are no issues. There were no issues he could have gone deep into, but he didn't consider it. There was a young lady who I think, Hemba, who was PA then, I think to Georgie, when they were trying to start. It was a privatization of Nigeria Airways. There was a technical team from Suisse and Sabina. They were a startup team. They were white, and Captain Georgie looked and said, if I put these people in Sheraton for 6 months for this one, this is what it will cost me. He decided to vacate his house in Glover Road and turned into an office and residence for these white people. And then they had to put money down to be buying them food, this thing, particularly in the office. So Hemba was giving this float of, I think, 2 million naira. It was being spent to make sure that food and everything was bought, receipts and everything. Nwazuta said they should refund the 2 million. So I don't want to go into, there are about 8 examples that you look at in that place, from one person to the other, this thing, and you ask yourself, was this really done by this group of persons? So when people talk about it, it gives Nigerians the impression that, oh, so much money was there, it's been lost, people have taken money, people are walking about. So please, but we need funding, but the industry has to, look at industry as an infant industry. Unfortunately, you can say it's been how many years since it was IBB. The infant stage. Yes, we are. I say it's congenital problem. It's a perpetual infancy. And unless we address it as an infant industry and then begin to put things in place to lift it up, we will not. But this country can have a virile national carrier. Put those who know together to say, this is the way to go. Don't stay somewhere and say, look, this is how it should be. That's what I think, and we should do ourselves a favor, because if we don't do it, by 2020, we would have been gone in the airline subsector. India did what they did. India today is trying to recreate national carrier, because Middle East Airlines, the Middle East Airlines, Emirates, whatever, they've destroyed India. So that's this thing with about 186 weekly frequencies in and out of India. So we should take steps to correct this. So executives should look at that with new information.
Okay, thank you for coming on.